Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the College Football Podcast, presented by the Regular Usual. I'm your host, Jordan Nash. Welcome you back for Week 6. I know it's crazy to think that after Saturday, we'll be halfway done with the regular season. November's right around the corner. That means Thanksgiving. Then there's Christmas or Hanukkah, I guess, if you're Jewish. And then there's bowls, and that's all going down during bowl season, and then it's over. And then we have another long 8 months before anything else starts again. So take advantage of it while you can, and enjoy the games you're dealt. Or, you know what I'm saying. Enjoy the games that are coming up, whichever. Anyways, each and every week I break down some of the best games that are going to be going on. Week 5, for those of you who did let me know, thank you, because it's rare I go in and download my old podcast. Shouts to Tyler for letting me know that the audio cut out immediately after the intro music last week, and there was really no fix. I re-uploaded back to the Libsyn to where I do my hosting at, and still I don't believe the error has been fixed yet, so apologies if you're hoping to hear my voice in your ears every Thursday or Friday or Saturday, whenever day you choose to listen to the podcast. I apologize we couldn't do it that week, but we do have the video. If you did watch that on YouTube, of course, the YouTube channel is the Regular Usual. Just search it on there, and it'll be the College Football Show. I'm sure you can figure it out. You downloaded the podcast, I'm sure you can find a YouTube video. Always, we start out with a recap from the week prior. Last week, I'll be honest, wasn't so hot. Things started looking really good out the gate. Last week we bet 10 games that I broke down. Ended up going 5-5 on that one, bringing my overall record to 28-22. Still above 500, which is great for me. I'm always looking for that. But we did lose $12.91 out of the bankroll, leaving us with $78.57, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So we started last week with $91.48. Dropped down $12 and change. However, I don't know who you are. I'm not sure what exactly happened, but I think we finally had someone who listened to the podcast start their own Bovada account. When they did that, I'm guessing they put in at least $100 because your boy got a $100 bonus added over to his betting profile, to his wallet now. And we're going to start this week at $178.57 because some of you clicked the link. That means I can bet more games, bet higher to make it a little more entertaining, such as betting $1 a game, which is great. So if any of you want to join in and start your own betting profiles, whether it's through MyBookie or Bovada, please use Bovada just because I get paid too, so that'd be great. Click the link that's going to be attached to the show's blog page. You can probably find it in your iTunes app or whichever app you use to listen to this. Click on it, set up an account. They'll do a deposit bonus up to $250, meaning you throw down $250, they'll give you $250 for $500 you can bet with. You really can't beat it. It's free money. It's kind of like your 401k where your employer will give you that little bit of that 401k match. This is the same thing, but for degenerates, Again, shouts to the person who did join it. I'm not sure who you are, but if you are listening, thank you. Muchas gracias. This week, while we're breaking down the podcast, we're doing a nice little adult beverage, which is something I've gotten away from in the past, just because I get too tired or I start yawning, which I've tried to avoid every episode, but it happens each and every time. This week, though, we're doing a nice little Sierra Nevada Vienna from their fall pack, courtesy of Costco. Yeah, your boy's got the Costco card. I'm not going to fuck around with you. We're going to get straight into business. And we're going to try to get this podcast short and sweet, mainly because it'll help with the upload times for when I do upload it to YouTube after I record. Because I got to be on the other coast early tomorrow morning, and I have to leave the house at 6:30, and it's already 9:30 at night, and I have to get some goddamn sleep. So we're going to dive right in, starting off with the Thursday night game. You have Tulsa heading over to Houston to take on the Houston Cougars. I know you might be thinking, why are you even breaking down this game? Neither one of these teams is ranked. I'm breaking it down because it's going to be one of the better games of the weekend. Maybe not necessarily from score, but definitely, or as games of closeness, but definitely if you like watching, if you're a pro guy and you're into watching the Rams, the Saints, or even the Chiefs right now, you like watching it because there's points being scored. This is a game that's going to have a lot of points scored in. Houston has been one of the best offensive teams in the country over the past 2 years under Major Applewhite as their head coach. But the real genius behind the pitcher is going to be Kendall Briles. If that name doesn't ring a bell to you, Kendall Briles is their co-head coach and offensive coordinator. He was also a quarterback coach and a co-offensive coordinator with his dad at Baylor a couple years ago. Remember when Baylor was really hot? When they had you know what I'm talking about, the Baylor quarterback I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, he got drafted, turned out to be a pro bust, didn't do anything too crazy. But that was the year they had Corey Coleman. They had, who else was some of their wide receivers? They were just blowing offensive out. They finally lost in the bowl. One of Art Briles' last games was the Fiesta Bowl, where UCF pulled the upset out in Blake Bortles' last college game. But during that whole time, they were on fire, just lighting up opponents. And Houston's done the same thing under Kendall Briles. It might have been last year before last. He was the offensive coordinator. Earlier was last year. This is his first year of offensive coordinator with Houston. Last year, he was the offensive coordinator with FAU, and we saw what he could do with not necessarily the high caliber Power 5 athlete down at FAU, and that's one of the reasons why Florida Atlantic was 8-5 last year, 9-4, something like that. Yes, Lane Kiffin was definitely known for his play calling prowess, but Kendall was the guy pulling the strings. And the interesting part of this is he'll be going up against Phil Montgomery, Tulsa's head coach. Both of those guys were at Baylor's for the last 3 years during the Art Briles era, and Phil Montgomery is a very highly regarded offensive mind as well. That being said, Houston is still a 17.5 point favorite with an over-under at 70, so they're expecting a lot of points to be scored in this game. I'll be honest, my first thing that jumped out to me was the points per game. Houston's averaging 52.3 points a game. Their lowest output was against Arizona, when they still put up 45 points, which is crazy. Another Power 5 school. Texas Tech, they blew out. They did lose that game, but they lost 63-49. So defense isn't going to be the Cougars' strong point, especially with Mark D'Onofrio being the defensive coordinator. For those of you who don't know that name, he was Miami's shit-ass coordinator while Al Golden was head coach, and I will never forgive that man for wasting talents like Chad Thomas and Anthony Chickalo in a 3-4 defense when they should have been a 4-3. But besides the point, Tulsa, on the other hand, coming into this game 1-3, their only win was against a team that I can't even, Central Arkansas. Other than that, they've had hell of losses. But this would be a good one if you like points scored. Points will be scored here. I think Houston does win this game and wins it with ease. If I can get it at 17.5, which is where I'm at right now, I might try to take a little bit less money and do it at 17. I wouldn't be surprised if Houston wins this game by 30 plus. We're going with the Cougars on Thursday night. Next up, Friday night game. You have Utah State taking on BYU, the battle for the Mormons. Basically, if you're playing this game, you have to be married if you want to have sex. That's a joke. That's BYU's rule. No sex before marriage. So basically, all the kids who go to college there, a lot of the Samoans and stuff, or Polynesian people who go to school at BYU, they get married right away at 18, 19, so they can get rid of that rule. There's no alcohol. BYU has all these crazy rules from Brigham Young and his Mormon beliefs and how the school was founded. But that's not for me to judge right now. What I'm here to judge is what BYU's done on the field. You'll remember a couple weeks ago, BYU was riding high. They pulled the upset against Wisconsin. They went on, they had a little duck week against McNeese State, and then last week, they got the shit kicked out of them by Washington 35-7. 3-2 overall, knocked them out of the top 25. Utah State is right there knocking on the door as a team that could be a top 25 team if they had enough signature wins. That's becoming more and more of a thing, especially with the college football era, or the playoff era. Everyone's all about signature wins. You want to win against good teams, and after you beat them, you want them to keep on winning. Utah State hasn't really had that yet. Their best game so far was against, they opened up the season with number 11 Michigan State, and they took Michigan State to the brink, only losing 38-31. Everything else has been a win for them. They're an offense that can actually score some points, averaging 51.5 a game. But the real reason, if I'm being perfectly honest, the reason why we're betting this game is because Utah State is one of the 7 teams in the country that's still undefeated against the spread. I'm going to go through that list very quickly to show if you don't pay attention to anything else, you don't even know who these teams are. These 7 teams, if you bet on them, they've yet to not cover. Starting with number 1, who's 5-0 against the spread, no pushes or anything. You have Washington State, followed by Syracuse, who did nicely for me last week against Clemson. The aforementioned Utah State Aggies, Appalachian State, West Virginia, led by Heisman Trophy winner Will Grier, Florida International, and Georgia Southern. Now, Georgia Southern and Utah State are the 2 teams I called into the Backdoor Cover hotline. If you haven't heard of Backdoor Cover, subscribe on iTunes. It's by Grand X Media. Those are 2 of the teams that we're going to be riding this year. I think it was last year before last, when Colorado was really hot. Colorado ended up going 10-0 against the spread up until the last week of the season. And if you let it ride each week at $100 bets, you were looking at, I think it was like $40-something thousand you put your win-ins in each and every week. Colorado was your team on $100 bets. I'm not putting all my money in that basket yet because I'm not betting $100 games, but definitely if you bet anything and you're thinking about, maybe I'll dip my toe in the water a little bit, look at those 7 teams. Look at who they're going to be playing next. Check the lines. You can just go to oddshark.com, do anything just to kind of see where the computer projects. You can kind of see where most of the money is, which is one of the things I've been paying attention to more and more, is where the public money is, where the everyday man or woman who bets on college football, what are they doing with their money? Most people think, oh, I don't know anything about BYU or Utah State, I'm staying away. Me, because I'm woke, I'm paying attention to Utah State because they're undefeated against the spread. Now, some of these other games I mentioned, I'll discuss what the public does, and it's kind of historically been in favor to fade the public. So let's say 65% of the money is on Utah State. It wasn't for this game, but let's say 65% of the money was on Utah State to cover 2.5 points, they're getting 2.5 points. That means I'd probably likely lean towards BYU because only 35% of the money, they don't think they're going to be able to win. Of course, there's a lot of metrics we could go into, but I would probably go against the public because that's what all these betting websites, all the bookies, that's where they pay attention to. Where's the public pushing the money at? So when they have big liabilities out there, like all the money, all the smart or sharps money is on a certain team, they're looking to rake it in and pull the rug out from underneath the public, if that makes any sense. It probably doesn't, but basically that's the reason we're taking this game. And because we didn't really talk much about the Mountain West, and BYU is, of course, they're like Notre Dame, they're independent now. But in this game here, BYU is only getting 2.5 points at home, which says a lot to me. That means Vegas isn't that confident in them either. So for this week, I'm going to have to go with Utah State plus the 2.5, potentially pulling the straight up win. Next up, this is where things get interesting. We're going to have the Red River Rivalry taking place in Dallas. We have number 19 Texas taking on number 7 Oklahoma. Oklahoma's going to be 8-point favorites in this game. I did a little research on this one. This is the 113th meeting of these 2 teams playing annually. Texas leads the all-time wins. I don't have that number off the top of my head. I want to say it was 62-48, and there's a couple ties in there from way back in the day when people tied in college football. But there's a lot to take in. I did do notes on this one because I know this is where game day is going to be, so you'll probably be hearing more and more of this come Saturday morning if you're one of the game day junkies. But since 2010, Oklahoma's 6-2 against Texas, with Texas's last win coming in 2015, and their last win as a ranked team was in 2009 against Oklahoma. Think about that. It's been almost 10 years since Texas was ranked and beat Oklahoma. So that means what? They've pulled upsets. Exactly. And especially so with Tom Herman. Tom Herman is 11-1 against the spread when Texas is an underdog in just these past 2 years. So he knows how to win when the chips are against him. Me personally, it's Texas. Is Texas back yet? Yes, they've had a couple impressive victories, namely over USC, then 2 weeks ago against TCU, but still, I can't get over the Maryland loss in week 1. But the defense has come alive in recent weeks. Oklahoma, they've looked like a potential challenger for the college football playoff. Really good, looking really good with Kyler Murray as quarterback. But they haven't been challenged yet, really. Of course, they did kind of get caught with their pants down against Army. Ended up having to take the game to overtime, and an Army blunder is the main reason they won. Oklahoma, of course, capitalized on that. But they haven't looked like Alabama. They look good, but not, we're just going to run every team out of the stadium. Texas, they've had their pits and battles, but they haven't blown anybody out yet. And I don't think this is a game where it's going to start. I mean, you're taking on a top 10 team in a neutral site game. It's going to be a good one. I am glad this game starts at noon for me and not at 11 a.m. if I was living in the Central Time Zone. But I'll be honest. When I first saw this, I saw 8 points. I'm going to go Oklahoma. Oklahoma just looks so much better. Again, talking about the public. That's my gut instinct. Like, oh, Oklahoma's a higher ranked team. We see all these highlights from them each and every week on top 10 plays. Oklahoma's going to beat Texas handedly. Not so fast, my friend. The last time there was a double-digit victory in this game was in 2013, and that was only by 11. Everything since has been single digits, and most of them coming within 6 points. So with this here, I'm telling you right now, I want to believe that Texas is back. I have a lot of faith. I have much more faith as Tom Herman as a coach than I do in Lincoln Riley so far. I think he's just been gifted athletes. Tom Herman's actually kind of built an ecosystem of players at Houston. He's done it at Texas. He just hasn't had a quarterback yet. As soon as he gets a really good one, not to shit all over what's his name? Nope, get fuck off, cat. Not to shit on Sam Ehlinger, but he isn't the quarterback that Alabama has in Tua, or that Clemson has in Trevor Lawrence, or even that Miami has in N'Kosi Perry. But Sam Ehlinger will definitely take off the run. But I think what will happen in this game, Texas's defense will throw off Oklahoma's offense a little bit. It'll be the first time they've truly been challenged. So I'm going with Texas plus the 8 points. Don't be shocked if they pull the outright upset. Leaving the Big Ten over for the Big 12, we're going to go with Northwestern heading into East Lansing, taking on number 20 Michigan State. We talked about Michigan State a little bit earlier, how they played Utah State, and kind of in a close game. The reason I'm doing this one is because Northwestern is one of those sneaky schools who will randomly throw a kink in some Big Ten program like Michigan State, Michigan, not necessarily Ohio State since the Urban Meyer's been there, but a lot of your Wisconsin, they're one of those trap games, kind of like in the ACC if you play Duke or Boston College, or if you're even Syracuse now. These are teams that have been quietly gaining respect and challenging these top tier teams that are very popular, have bigger fan bases more and more. And Northwestern is sneaky good. Their record doesn't show it, only being 1-3, but look at their last couple of games. They won against Purdue, which is a big shock. They lost in the Battle of the Brains against Duke. Akron, how does that happen? Only lost by 5. And then last week, they take Michigan to the wire, only losing 20-17. And that was a home game for them. This time they're going on the road to take on a Michigan State team who has yet to blow anybody out. I don't think Michigan State is a good team. I'm going to say it. Ben Lewerke, great quarterback, or decent quarterback, kind of reminds me of Kirk Cousins, who was also at Michigan State, but he just doesn't have the weapons around him to really capitalize on anything. Their defense is a little banged up right now, and Michigan State's going to give you 10.5 points at home. Let's see, what time does this game kick off? This game kicks off at noon, 73, the high percent chance of rain. That means it's going to be a sloppy game. Expect a lot of turnovers, low scoring. What's the over-unders at 43, so they don't even see this getting into high digits. The lower the number goes, the better it always fares for the underdog. And for that reason alone, I'm going to take Northwestern. If I can get them at plus 11, I would almost put that as my blood bank guarantee. Now, getting into a little bit of some rivalry games here. And we're going to start over in the SEC. Jeremy, I just took a sip. If you're listening or watching, I didn't announce it, but I'm telling you in retrospect just to piss you off. There's a second one. All right. Over in the SEC, we have an East versus West battle. We have number 5 LSU, the Bayou Bengals, taking on number 22 Florida in the Swamp. LSU, surprisingly, only a 2.5-point favorite in this game. And that's kind of stuck the whole time. The line hasn't really moved much. I think on Sunday when the line first opened, LSU was a 4-point favorite. That line's dropped a 1.5, which means a lot of money came in on Florida right out the gate. And I think that's mainly because Florida was riding high over their win at the then ranked Mississippi State team. They said, oh, Felipe Franks is our savior. Dan Mullen is the guy. He's the best coach since Steve Spurrier. Yada, yada, yada. Florida was all hyped. Florida fans were all hyped up from this game. LSU just quietly like, we're beating teams. We're just kind of going to mosey along. We're going to have our crazy coon-ass coach and Ed Orgeron speak all types of gibberish to the camera. And no one really knows what he says. But he's coaching, and he's our guy. So that's it. LSU, a couple of nice wins on the year, of course, starting out the season against number 8 Miami, who's now number 17. And then the best one on the resume, of course, is at the time number 7 Auburn winning that 1-point game on the road in Death Valley. Florida, the Swamp, the resurgence of Dan Mullen, Florida being undefeated and ranked for this early in the season, not just week 1 and falling out if they get beat by some school they shouldn't lose to. Florida is actually starting to see their fan base come aboard a little bit more. So I expect the Swamp to be packed. I expect LSU to go in there and still beat their ass, though. I'm just going to say it right there. We're not even going to get that much into it. I watched LSU defense against Miami, of course, and then against the Auburn game. They have a very stifling. It's very hard to run on them. Their secondary, yes, they did lose. I'm trying to remember who the starting corner was, or maybe it was a safety, that Grant Delphitt, I think. I want to say it was him or one of the other guys, one of their highly regarded recruits, who was injured in that Miami game and won't return for the year, or at least for 6 weeks. Florida, on the other hand, offensively, I'll be honest, it's kind of been, it's picking up a little bit of steam, but they really haven't got their running game going yet. They got housed by Kentucky at home. Then they started to get a little bit better, built up some points, build some faith in Felipe Franks against Colorado State. Tennessee, that was probably Florida's best game of the season. They looked good defensively, they looked good offensively, and they shut out a really, really shitty, or not shut out, but they put that work to the Volunteers. And then last week's game in Mississippi State, Florida didn't even have a touchdown until the third quarter. That was a low-scoring game, 13-6. Hey, I picked Florida to cover. I think they were 10-point dogs or 14-point dogs, and they covered that game. They won outright. So Florida's good, but I think Mississippi State isn't as good as people thought they were, and that's why people are starting to buy stock in the Gators. 3:30 kickoff. The Swamp's going to be hot. LSU's no stranger to that. I don't think weather's going to impact them at all. I think it'll be the atmosphere and the crowd. Auburn might have been a little bit more amped up atmosphere than the Swamp will be, but Auburn's a much better team. Florida's not quite there yet. I expect Florida to probably finish the season maybe in the top, maybe in that 25 to 18 spot, but they'll lose this game to LSU. And if I have to eat my words, I'll eat my words, but they'll lose this game. LSU wins this game comfortably, probably by a touchdown plus. We're going with LSU to cover. Hey, they've been 4-1 against UF the last 5 years. I know it's a new year, number of Dan Levin. Doesn't matter. It's not the year for them yet. Next year is a chance that Florida is going to be a little bit better. Staying in the SEC, you have number 13 Kentucky heading into College Station to take on Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher. This is a weird one. There hasn't been a lot of games between these two teams, not a lot of matchups between these two teams in a very long time. I'm trying to remember the last time I actually saw where these two teams played. Texas A&M, even though Kentucky's up to number 13 in the country, Texas A&M is going to be the 6-point home favorite. I don't think people quite believe in Kentucky yet. Maybe they've just pulled some luck out of there. I mean, they beat Florida, and they beat the aforementioned Mississippi State. And then last week was a really nice win against another SEC opponent in South Carolina. Of course, Kentucky lives and dies by Benny Snell, and he's the workhorse. Texas A&M is going to be able to load the box, and people are like, oh, well, of course Texas A&M is going to be the favorite. They're the only team that Alabama hasn't absolutely housed. And that's true. They also took Clemson to the wire, and those are their only two losses, Alabama and Clemson. the number 1 and number 3 team in the country. Yeah, I would expect them to be pretty good too. Kentucky only getting 6 points though is a tough one because I could see this getting really bad early, especially for especially for Kentucky. I wouldn't be shocked if Texas A&M jumped out in this game to maybe like a 24 to 6 halftime lead. You see Kentucky kind of come back in the second half, do a little. Mark Stoops does some offensive adjustments. Maybe they ISO in on Kellen Mond, even though he's not a true running threat and a quarterback. But they're going to sit back there and throw. It's a Jimbo Fisher coach team, so it's going to be kind of a pro spread type offense. Kentucky, of course, run heavy. Can't say much for their defense as of yet. 6 points. This one, if it was 8, I would definitely take Kentucky. If it was 4, I would be all in on Texas A&M. Being at 6 right in the middle, that's a little bit harder to pick and choose from, but I think I'm going to have to go with the Sharps on this one and take Texas A&M to cover this game. Don't get me wrong, I love Kentucky. I love Big Blue Nation. I think A&M wins this game and takes Kentucky down a little bit from the Bluegrass State. Next up, a game that I want to go deep into. I'm going to try my best. If this is a annoying segment by any means because of how big of a homer I am, please skip forward 30 seconds multiple times until I break down the Auburn game next. But it's rivalry week. We already mentioned it with Texas and Oklahoma, Florida, LSU. Now we got FSU and Miami. Miami's going to be 13.5 point home favorites. The line opened at 11. I reached out to her. I put a thing up on my Instagram, and I ended up again putting it over to Facebook as well of what Miami and FSU fans really thought about this game. And is Florida State that bad, or is Miami that good? It was a mix of answers. I mean, it kind of got the same thing for the LSU-Florida game. Shouts to the people who did respond to that. I'm going to backtrack just a little bit and say that most people said for the LSU-Florida game, LSU win, even Florida fans included. LSU wins. Florida keeps it close, though. I don't think they can cover. From the Miami-Florida State game, Miami fans were like, oh yeah, Miami's going to blow them out the water. Again, not so fast, my friend. This is a rivalry game. And don't forget, trust me, I haven't forgot. Florida State won 7 straight up until last year on a last-second fluke. I can call it a fluke. It was a very lucky play. Malik Rozier threw it directly to Darrell Langham, and he just happened to catch the defensive back sleeping a little bit. That's the only reason they won that game. But Miami hasn't looked great offensively with him under Malik Rozier, so they finally made a change a couple weeks ago. All right, so I guess we're going to record from the phone now. I'm going to see if I can splice those two together. This will be interesting to go in and delete that data. But for those of you stuck with me during the podcast portion of it, I was saying how Florida State won 7 of the last 8 games until a lucky pass from Malik Rozier to Darrell Langham. This year under these last 2 games under N'Kosi Perry, Miami's offense has looked as it should look with the dearth of talent they actually have on the team. N'Kosi's he's much more accurate. He's more of a running threat than Malik was. The offense looks better, I'm going to be honest. But this will be Miami's first real challenge, and N'Kosi Perry's first real challenge as his second game as a starter with probably one of the biggest rivalry games he's going to play all season. Well, definitely all season, maybe other than Virginia Tech. But Florida State Mayhem, everyone knows Florida State hasn't looked great. They got beat by Virginia Tech in week 1, lost to Syracuse handily, and then if it wasn't for probably some of the dumbest play calling, which we saw a lot of last week, but by Bobby Petrino, Louisville probably would have taken him to the house as well. They pulled that one out by luck, but Miami getting 14, that's crazy. Don't be wrong. I want to see that all day. I want to see Miami win this game by 30-plus points if possible, but it's a rivalry game. It's not going to happen. And to think about it being at home, Miami hasn't won against Florida State at home since 2004. That's 14 years, motherfucker. 14 years they haven't won at home against Florida State. They're due. Miami's going to win this game. I'm very confident in saying that Miami will win this game. However, as much as it pains me to say, being how this series has gone over the last, my entire lifetime, very few of them have gone to double-digit victories. I say in 28 years, And then I started paying attention to football probably in 94, 95. So we even deck that out and call it 15 years, 13 years, 13, 23 years. Shit, I thought I'd be good at math, but I'm not. All these games, most of these games have been very close coming down. Everyone knows, of course, the infamous wide right, wide left scenarios when it came down to kicks. Kicks usually decide these games. Last year was a 1-point victory. I don't expect this year. This is a pride game. A lot of these kids, like when Florida State play, USF, UCF, a lot of these kids played against each other in high school. They've seen each other at these Nike Combine event, the opening events, these Spark camps, all these things. They are well aware of each other. There's going to be a lot of jawing back and forth. Expect a couple personal fouls. I don't expect a very clean game on either end, but Florida State covers, Miami wins by 9. I may, depending on how I'm feeling during the game, emotionally hedge this bet if Miami gets out big, and probably take the money line on Miami as well, just because. Next up, 2 more people. Stay with me. We have number 8 Auburn heading into Starkville to take on the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Auburn's getting 4 points on the road, and this will be Auburn's first real away game. They started off the year against Washington, but that was a neutral site game in Atlanta. Everything else, they played at home. So this will be the first time they're going on the road, and they're going into a hostile Starkville environment. Florida went into Starkville last week on Dan Mullen's homecoming and pulled the upset, knocked Mississippi State out of the top 25. Auburn, on the other hand, they've been kind of just coasting over these little pop-up teams like Arkansas, Southern Mississippi, Alcorn State. You get the picture. They haven't really been tested yet, so Mississippi State's going to be up for it. 4 points Mississippi State's getting at home. If you could make it 9, or if I can get double digits, I'm taking Mississippi State all day. However, Auburn's going to be the other team. They haven't really been, I wouldn't say they've walked through any opponents. They probably did a little bit of prep for this game last week, taking on Southern Miss the week before. Maybe this will be the week that Jared Stidham and I forget the head coach's name right now, Gus Malzahn, finally open up the playbook. I expect Auburn to roll this one big. Give me Auburn covering the 4 points with relative ease. And finally, everybody, we're going to wrap this thing up with number 6 Notre Dame taking on the new, once again ranked, number 24 Virginia Tech Hokies. Virginia Tech in this game is going to be 6-point home underdogs. Now, a lot of people are like, why is Virginia Tech even ranked again? They started off the year really great. They looked good in their win against Florida State. Then they kind of fell off and fell way the fuck off with that loss 2 weeks ago to Old Dominion. They redeemed themselves. A lot of other people lost as well, plus a win over the then number 22 ranked Duke Blue Devils. Virginia Tech is back in the top 25, just barely at number 24. Notre Dame, of course, has got great wins this year over Michigan and Stanford. And then everything in between there is just, Notre Dame plays a really tough schedule. I even as a Notre Dame hater, I can admit Notre Dame plays a very tough scheduling opponents from the ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12. Maybe in the future, I wouldn't be surprised if they play some Big 12 teams or even some SEC teams in regular season games. This one here is very intriguing to me, mainly because it'll be Notre Dame's quarterback. I think his name's Ian Book. Is that his name? Ian Book. Yeah. This will be his first. This will be his second test. He went into Stanford last week, pulled a W with ease. Virginia Tech, their starting quarterback Josh Jackson went down, I think in the middle of the Old Dominion game and came out, and he was replaced with Ryan Willis, who has been a backup for the past 2 seasons. But he came in, did what he needed to do, didn't make a lot of errors last week, and that's the reason Virginia Tech beat a very well-coached Duke team. However, the biggest caveat in this game out of everything, Notre Dame does not, think it back, I can't give you many examples, but one game comes to mind more than anything else. Notre Dame does not play good at night on the road. Yes, people are like, well, they played at Stanford last week. Remember, they played at Touchdown Jesus at home. Stanford came to them. Michigan came to them. They do great at home at night, but it's when they go on the road, Brian Kelly just falls apart. He turns as red as that fucking Yeti cup over there that you can't see because you're probably not watching the video and the camera's not pointing over there. But he turns dog dick red when things start going bad. And Lane Stadium at night, enter the Sandman, Bud Foster. Come on. You got to think Virginia Tech's going to have something ready for him. He's been looking for this game for the past, I don't know, as soon as Florida State ended, Bud Foster started playing for Notre Dame. He thought that'd be the next big team they faced. However, they did have a little slip up. They kind of got sidetracked after the win over William & Mary, and Old Dominion caught him out of nowhere, caught him sleeping. This week, however, Virginia Tech's getting 6 points at home at a team that a place they don't lose very much. I think the last time, Virginia Tech is 11-1 at home against non-conference opponents straight up. And Notre Dame being an independent, that's a non-conference player. If you're paying attention, you know. That's it. We're taking Virginia Tech. Give me the Hokies +6. I hope they bring Notre Dame fans back down to earth and just kick the ever-loving shit out of them, I'm being honest, guys. I despise Notre Dame, and you should too, unless you're ISIS. Anywho, that's it for the podcast this week. Again, if you want to do a quick rundown for those of you who do follow the picks and place your own bets, whether you want to follow me or fade me, we're taking Houston -17.5 against Tulsa, Utah State +2.5 against BYU, Texas +8 against Oklahoma, Northwestern +10.5 against Michigan State, LSU -2.5 against Florida, Texas A&M -6 against Kentucky, FSU +13.5. God, I hate even saying it out loud. +13.5 against Miami, Auburn -4 against Mississippi State, and Virginia Tech +6 to wrap it up. If you want, I'm probably going to bet, and you did stick around for this long, I'm going to probably bet the Conor Khabib fight. Everyone, of course, wants Conor McGregor to win because he's fighting against an evil Russian on Saturday night, and it'll be one of the most anticipated UFC cards for most of the year. Khabib is the favorite, though, however. Mixed martial MMA math doesn't ever line up if this person beat that person, but there's a reason Khabib's the favorite. If I had to take a guess right now, just off the top of my head, without really watching much UFC so far this year, if I had to place my money somewhere, I'm placing it on Khabib. So you get a bonus pick in there as well. So shouts to you for sticking out for the last bit of the podcast. Again, if you have any questions or want to know anything about what I'm picking, I put out all my picks pretty much all throughout the day on Saturday. I snip them and throw them out on Twitter. So if you want to follow me there, it's @j-325. On Instagram, it's jord.ash325. And of course, you can always hit me up directly, the regular usual at gmail.com. Check out the website. That's going to have your most up-to-date, give you the full stats. You can kind of go back and see the previous episodes and what I bet and where. And then, of course, the shoe money section where I just pull these random parlays out of the sky and throw them in there and fingers crossed, hope I make money. That's it, everybody. Thank you again for tuning into the episode. We'll see you again for week 7, which will probably be coming sooner rather than later because I'm going to be out of town next week. So thank you. Just giving the preemptive heads up. It might just be a write-up episode. I don't know if I'll be able to record. Again, thank you for listening, everybody. We'll catch you next time.